recording. So Manuel, the floor is yours and you are already sharing the screen.
Okay, so thank you very much and thank you for joining this session. So the title of my talk today, as you can see, is Gestuality and ad hoc concept construction. And the focus of this talk will obviously be on gestuality. My aim today is to argue, to show that gestuality may behave as an ostensive signal or pointer that indicates the need for a specified conceptual representation. Obviously, I will be relying on relevance-theoretic pragmatics, which is, as we all know, this cognitive pragmatic framework that consists of comprehension as an incredibly complex and incredibly fast process in which the mind carries out different simultaneous parallel tasks, one of which is ad hoc concept construction. Now, so what is this approach to comprehension? So, as I said before, the mind, according to relevance-theoretic pragmatics, when understanding utterances, carries out a series of simultaneous parallel tasks. Some of these tasks are linguistically mandated inferential tasks. Among them, we find reference assignment, the delimitation of the time and duration of actions, and even the establishment of different relationships between the state of affairs, the actions, the events that are alluded to in a proposition. On the other hand, we find non-linguistically mandated inferential tasks. The first of these tasks is supplying unarticulated constituents, or those unarticulated constituents or unsaid constituents that are necessary to get a meaningful proposition. And the second of these tasks is what is known in relevance-theoretic pragmatic ad hoc concept construction. As we all know, in relevance theory, concepts are understood as mental entities comprising three types of entries comprising varied information. The first of these entries is the lexical entry, in which we find information about the natural language word that is used to verbalize a concept. The second of these entries is the logical entry, which contains information about the logical defining characteristic properties of what the concept alludes to. And the third of these entries is the encyclopedic entry, which groups highly idiosyncratic individual information about experiences connected with what the concept denotes, personal experiences, ideas, beliefs, and so on. Now, mental concepts, all these mental entities need to be inferentially adjusted. They need to be fine-tuned or specified when entering inferential processes so that they can capture what the speaker is thought to refer to when saying something. In relevance-theoretic pragmatics, as we all know, two types of these adjustments are identified. One of them is narrowing or strengthening of the conceptual denotation, and the second one is broadening or loosening of what the concept denotes. These two types of adjustments are understood as rearrangements of the information that is included in the logical or perhaps also in the encyclopedic entry of the concept. Now, we know that in conceptual narrowing, some information items that features in the encyclopedic entry of the concept is elevated to the status of logical or defining properties. This is what happens in utterances such as this we find on the slide. Give me a red pen, meaning an object that writes in red ink. Or many doctors drink because of the stress of their job. Drink in this case means drinking large quantities of alcohol. On the other hand, conceptual loosening or broadening is a process by means of which information in the logical entry is deleted. This is what happens in utterances such as the children quickly form a circle. As a result of loosening, we delete information about a property pertaining to absolute roundness or perfect roundness, so that circle can refer to circle-like shape. In relevance-theoretic pragmatics, ad hoc concept construction is presented, as I said before, as a non-linguistically mandated process. This is a process that is automatically carried out as a result of the need to get a proposition that somehow captures what the speaker means. But recent research has shown that there are some markers, some indicators that tell the hearer that the hearer needs a very specific conceptual representation. This is the case of certain morphological markers. Morphemes in inflectional languages such as Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, morphemes like the diminutive morpheme or the augmentative morpheme that indicate the need for a more specified conceptual representation. For instance, in Spanish, casa, which means house, can be added the diminutive morpheme, a diminutive morpheme like casita or casucha, and in these cases, it refers not to a standard house, but to a specific type of house. The same applies to other lexical markers, such as the definite or the indefinite article, that indicate that the concept should be specified on the basis of knownness or unknownness. Or the case of demonstratives, as in this guise, where the concept needs to be specified on the basis of information about the feelings that the speaker experiences about what is being referred to. And also the case of possessives. In languages like Spanish or Greek, we can even add possessive to proper names, okay? And in this case, the proper names does not simply refer to a particular person, but also conveys or the speaker's attitude towards the person referred to. Other types of linguistic markers indicating this need for ad hoc concept construction can be phrasal. And this is the case of adjectives, expressive expletives, or even evidential participles. In the case of adjectives, they add information that contributes to enriching the concept, so to say, with varied information. In the case of expressive expletives, these words make or cause the concept to have been referred to. And in the case of evidential participles, these words add information pertaining to some sort of attitude, epistemic stance about a certain state of affairs that is being alluded to by means of a word. An alleged murderer is a person that cannot be taken so far as a murderer, okay? And finally, we also have clausal markers, clausal elements that indicate the need for ad hoc concept construction. This is the case of relative clauses, ing clauses, or even participial clauses. All these elements tell the hearer, instruct the hearer to enrich the conceptual representation, the conceptual element, with specific items of information that somehow delimit, enrich, widen that concept. In this talk, as I said before, I would like to argue that in many cases, nonverbal communication, paralanguage, and more specifically, gestuality can also behave in this way. I mean, gestuality can also indicate that hearers need a very specific conceptual representation. By means of nonverbal communication, we normally refer to, on the one hand, paralanguage or vocalics, which are all those vocal, nonverbal communicative elements that come to the hearer through the oral channel, more specifically prosody and interjections. And on the other hand, kinesics, which are all those human communicative movements that come, that are this input to the hearer. Okay, the gestuality normally includes manual gesture, kinesics, and some other behaviors. All these behaviors are in relevance-theoretic pragmatic. All these behaviors are characterized as non-translational. They encode procedural meaning, so they do not encode any content. Now, sometimes they may encode, in some cases, very indeterminate or even ineffable content. So they do not make a serious contribution to the truth conditional content of utterances. This is the standard position in relevance-theoretic pragmatics as put forth by Tim Walton and some other relevance theories. In the case of kinesics, which, as I said before, covers all these movements, expression that we make by means of our arms, our hands, and so on, kinesics has been subdivided into different types of gestures. We find different classifications. For instance, one dating back to 1969 by Ekman and Friesen classifies kinesics or divides kinesic elements into emblems, illustrators, adapters, regulators, or affect displays. Second classification divides or groups kinesics into gesticulation language like this. And finally, the case of Luis Poyatos, who divides kinesics into gestures, manners, or postures. I will be following the second classification. This is the classification by in this paper, in this presentation. So we can say that all these gestures, all these movements that we normally make while speaking, range along secondary movements to a pole in which we find less spontaneous, more spontaneous movements. We find proper gesticulation. Proper just formally accompany speech, and they normally reveal a variety of states and feelings like uneasiness, arousal, anxiety, nervousness, and many other states. Then we find language-like gestures, which are normally integrated into a linguistic stream, and they do contribute to interpretation. They
Manuel, sorry. Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, Manuel, but we can't see the slides.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? The slides have disappeared. Are you sharing? Can you try to share?
Really?
Okay, there was some deterioration in quality, and then the slides have disappeared. Now it's like
yeah.
You
I'm sharing the slides.
Okay, so can you perhaps stop sharing and share again? Let's maybe try to.
Can you say it now?
No, and I'm afraid you like freeze, you know, occasionally. So maybe the you know, capacity.
Can you say it now?
Nope. Now I think Manuel has disappeared. I think it's yes. He's here again.
Can you hear me?
Manuel, we can barely hear you because it seems like maybe the, you know, the.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and I think it's due to the low capacity of the internet, maybe where you are, that the slides disappear or you disappear. Now we only have the audio. So I'm not sure I know how to help. Okay, I can see you again.
Can you see me?
Yes, now I can see you. We can see you.
But I cannot share my screen right now. You need to enact the function. You need to allow me to share my screen.
Yes, but I haven't done anything to meeting instance. I haven't done anything to stop you from. Oh my God. I don't think I have any. Okay, because it's I don't think I have any ability to, you know, make you or enable you to share or to stop you from sharing. So this has nothing to do with my. Okay, I mean, I can think of one option. It will take a minute or so. Maybe if you could send your presentation to me, and I will share my screen. But we are sort of, you know, losing time. So, but in you know, lack of a better solution, maybe.
Or maybe you could just speak to us, Manuel.
Really? Would you just like me to carry on with my presentation?
Well, I don't know. As Robin has suggested, if you are happy just talking, we'll be able to follow. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so
old-fashioned way. Go on.
No visual support. Okay, no problem at all. So where did this start working? I think that I had mentioned the different classifications of gestures, and I was saying that gestures have been placed along a continuum that goes from more spontaneous, more involuntary gestures to a pole that comprises less continuous, more voluntary control, and even more linguistic gestures. On the more spontaneous involuntary pole, we find proper gesticulation, which covers those absolutely spontaneous hand and arm movements and touches that accompany speech, which normally reveal a variety of states like uneasiness, arousal, anxiety, nervousness, even sadness or whatever. Then we find language-like gestures, which are perhaps less spontaneous, a bit less spontaneous, but they are integrated into a linguistic stream, and they do contribute interpretation. They help, they assist the hearer to interpret what the speaker is saying. Then we find pantomimes, which are all those movements appearing in isolation and normally depicting, mimicking objects or actions, as if pantomimes behave like icons. So they are a bit less spontaneous, more controlled, more voluntary. And then we continue to emblems, which are very culture-specific gestures. They convey agreed upon meanings, like the thumb up or the round fingers signaling okay or whatever. And finally, sign languages, which are proper rule-governed linguistic systems, as the English Sign Language, the Spanish Sign Language, and many other sign language. So the idea is that all these gestures, or some of these gestures, could indicate the need for an ad hoc concept. Okay, but what happens? Can we treat all these gestures in the same way, in the same fashion? So let's start with proper gesticulation. In my opinion, proper gesticulation cannot indicate the need for ad hoc concept construction because precisely of its involuntariness. Okay. Proper gestures, spontaneous gestures are spontaneous and controlled, and this nature deprives them or prevents them from acquiring a pointing function that is normally attributed to some prosodic inputs. But other gesture types may fulfill this pointing function, and they could therefore be considered to behave as pointers, even if visual, that indicate the need for an ad hoc concept. This is the case of language-like gestures. Many head nods, raised eyebrows, finger or hand pointing, smiles, grimaces are produced purposefully they are controlled by the speaker, and they can be taken to be used in order to deliberately show that a particular word is uttered with a very specific meaning. Okay, so this language-like gestures may certainly entitle the hearer to contrive a highly idiosyncratic and occasion-specific conceptual representation. Imagine, for instance, that someone is having a snack, okay, and this person takes a little bit of cheese, okay, and while having the cheese, this person says, this is cheese, okay, and as he utters this, he produces a smile of delight, he moves his eyes, or he almost shuts his eyes, and in this case, cheese, pronounced in this ways and produced with all these accompanying gestures, can be taken to refer to a very specific cheese, a very specific type of cheese. Perhaps cheese that has been cut in a specific way, cheese that that belongs to a specific type, I don't know, cheddar, or that has the perfect temperature, or whatever. The same would apply to a case in which this is cheese would be produced ironically with a grimace of disgust, gesture of disappointment, or whatever. Okay, so language-like gestures can behave as deliberate pointers, signaling, indicating the hearer that he needs to think of a very specific type of thing, a very specific denotation for a word that has been used by the speaker. What happens with pantomimes and emblems? I think that the same could apply to pantomimes and emblems. They could work as deliberate gestures that point, that indicate the need for this ad hoc concept. Okay, pantomimes and emblems somehow illustrate in many cases the shape, only pantomimes. Pantomimes normally illustrate the shape or the largeness of the reference of a noun, and therefore they could contribute to fine-tuning the denotation of the name in question on the basis of notions pertaining to the largeness of the object that is being referred to, the size, the shape, or whatever. So they would contribute to, they would add information about shape, largeness, or even some mental image to the conceptual file. In the case of pantomimes, they are in many cases mimetic, okay? So they could be taken to be iconic or mimetic visual pointers, okay? Imagine someone said, Martha came slowly, okay? Of course, the speaker could openly, overtly place her arms in front of the chest with the palms up, and ostensibly move the palms up and down repeatedly and very slowly, as if saying that the speed with which Martha came was slower than average or irritatingly slow. Okay, the same would apply to a gesture for taste appreciation, or for pleasure, or for enjoyment. Think of the Italian gesture, twisting the finger ostentatiously and rapidly or vividly on the cheek, in order to indicate that the person making this gesture really likes the food. Depending on the vividness or the rapidness of the twisting, you could come up with some idea, some concept that he doesn't simply like a meal or some food or whatever, but he loves or he's delighted by the food. So,
okay, excuse me, we've already passed minutes, 5 minutes past the scheduled time. So
yes, I'm about to conclude, Agnieszka.
Yes.
Okay, so the idea is that even if paralanguage in general has been claimed to contribute to ad hoc concept construction, in the case of gestuality, not all gestures could fulfill this function. And I think that only language like gestures, pantomimes, and emblems could be considered as the gestures that do contribute to this process of ad hoc construction. And this is all I had to say and I wanted to say today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm really sorry for the technical problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuel. And you've done, fantastically considering the technical difficulties. And I'm sorry to have interrupted you just, like one sentence before you actually finished your presentation. So there is like, I don't know, five minutes actually for questions or comments. I can see Robin is raising her little hand, the Zoom hand.
Primarily just to find out whether I can be heard, actually. Can I?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So Manuel, because of the technical difficulties, I'm sure that I lost some of the detail of what you were saying. So I'm really just going to invite you to expand a little bit on some points. So I think at the end you were saying that pantomime and emblem gestures, I'm not quite sure what you meant by emblem, so you might say something more about that, are the ones that indicate that some sort of fine-tuning of a spoken concept is required. Are there other gestures that encode, in your view, encode concepts of their own? So they might be contributing an actual concept to the proposition, as opposed to just indicating that some other accompanying spoken concept needs to be adjusted or modulated in some way. So really, I'm just inviting you to expand a little bit.
Okay, so I relied on this classification by Manuel, and in this classification there are proper gestures, language-like gestures like pointing or even smiling, opening your eyes more widely. Then there are these iconic gestures like emblems and pantomimes. Pantomimes somehow resemble, in some cases, an action, like opening a jar, okay? They somehow imitate something. So this mimetic character, this mimetic nature, I think, the way in which you do the gesture, which is an intentional gesture, somehow gives you like additional information about the characteristics of the action that is being referred to, that is being alluded to. In the case of emblems, emblems are cultural gestures. They belong to cultural groups. For instance, this to indicate okay, or this to indicate okay, or this during when hitchhiking. Okay, the way you produce, the way you make these gestures also indicate, for instance, in the case of okay, if you just simply do this, you perhaps show mild agreement that you are simply happy with what someone said. But if you say, wow, you are not simply okay, you did not simply enjoy, you did not simply find something acceptable, but you are delighted, you find it outstanding or whatever. So they give you like nuances, information, additional information that helps you enrich the concept that you create about, I don't know, agreement, happiness, or whatever, with nuances, shades pertaining to, intensity, feelings, attitudes, or whatever.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So that simple case, the emblematic okay gesture, you're saying, I think, it actually encodes and thus expresses a concept. And then when you do this sort of further thing with it, this intensifies it and therefore requires it to be adjusted, fine-tuned, modulated in some kind of a way. So there really are, in a certain sense, two things there, aren't there? One is the concept encoded by the emblematic gesture, and the other is, I suppose you could say it's an additional gesture in a way when you actually sort of repeat it in this fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's it.
And it's that repetition, actually, isn't it? You're saying it's that repetition that actually requires the fine-tuning, or indicates that fine-tuning is required.
Yeah, perhaps repetition, or the way you produce the gesture, like with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. I think
partial gesture expression.
okay, thank you very much, Manuel. I'm afraid we got a little bit out of sync with you. And anyway, it's time to move on